push me, I'll beat her because she keeps pushing me.
Anybody that's mean to you or fights with you is not your friend. You need to understand that, okay?
He's not my friend.
Okay.
And Cornflakes is not my friend.
Okay.
And Sugar Mars is not my friend.
And who Sugar what?
Who's Sugar Mars? He beats me.
Okay, like I said, anybody that beats you is not your friend. So you need to defend yourself with people that try to fight with you, okay?
New African girl talk.
Hello and welcome. So Gigi, you spend the whole day fighting other kids at school? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a problem. That's a red flag because your teachers have never talked to me about that.
Now Carmen will be talking to me rude.
Okay, listen to me. And that's what I'm telling you. You need to keep defending yourself. The reason why these kids here act that way to you is because they see you're different. Kids are just mean sometimes.
Today, their mom's teacher did not beat me. Their mom's teacher is like
But
my real teacher beats me.
hello guys and welcome back to another video. It is Miss Dark and Lovely. If you are new to my channel, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe as well. To all my current subscribers, thank you so much for keeping up with this journey. So all right guys, today I wanted to talk to you about the experience that I'm having with having my kids enrolled in school in Ghana. All right, so let's get into this video. So we moved to a new area a couple months ago and we had to change schools for the kids, which was expected. We decided to enroll them in a school that's pretty close to the house, walking distance, which was perfect. Unfortunately, things did not go as planned and the experience went south very quickly. I had a few, issues in the beginning with just communication with the school, but I just kind of overlooked it because one thing I've come to accept about living in Ghana is that communication is just not as smooth as I'm used to. And a lot of times when there are discrepancies and issues, people just kind of have this attitude of, as we say in Chi, enyeshe, it's not a big deal, just let it go. People are pretty lax about, how do I put this nicely, the lack of customer service. And that's a problem for me because I'm not used to that. I take those things very seriously. And if it's missing, it just kind of makes the experience and the interaction sour. I spent a good time talking to them about my kids' personalities, their behaviors, how they perceive things, how they deal with situations. And the whole point of that was to try to get them to understand and try to meet them where they are at instead of trying to force them to adapt to the Ghanaian behavior and ways just overnight. So they started going to the school. They both seemed to be doing fine. We're making friends, but very quickly I started realizing that my daughter was not having a good time. She was having trouble because while she does have some friends, she was starting to be bullied by some of the other kids, and a lot of times there was a lot of attention placed on her hair. And I was not surprised by that a bit because one of the things that I did talk to my kids about before we moved to Ghana was their hair. As you have seen, I have locks, my daughters have locks, and in Ghana, locks, unfortunately, even in 2022, is still not widely accepted. It's not a hairstyle that people are comfortable with. When I was growing up in Ghana, people with locks were kind of looked down upon, frowned upon, and even since we've been here, people act the same way towards me. People meet me, they don't know me, and they naturally assume that I'm like Jamaican or Nigerian. They assume I'm everything else but Ghanaian. They assume that I'm like a rough type of girl, that I'm like a hood type of girl. I don't know what it is. So none of that bothers me. But unfortunately, because kids are kids and I know how kids take on different experiences and stuff, I had to talk to my kids. So way before we moved, I started talking to my daughters. I started talking to my son about dealing with people who approach them, in the wrong way because of my daughter's hair. I've always taught my son to defend his sisters. I've taught my daughters to make sure they're not letting nobody bully them and put them down because of their locks. I have to remind them constantly they're gorgeous, they're beautiful, they don't need to allow anybody to put them down. So I had these conversations with them way before we came, and I was hoping that they would be ready for it. And as I imagined, when they started going to the school, some of the kids started making their hair the center of attention. There's so many times where my daughters will go to school and kids are practically playing in their hair because they're just not used to seeing them. They're the only kids in that school with locks, and it just became a type of stressful thing for my daughter. When you have people bullying you and making fun of you because of your hair, it is hard. And I completely relate to them because when I went to the US at 11, bullying was part of my life. I was bullied a lot for just being black, for being African, for being dark skinned. So I tried to prepare my kids ahead. But kids these days are brutal, and I know because I've had firsthand experience. It looks like when it started happening, my oldest was just having a hard time. She started being more timid and more shy. She did not like going to school. She just did not want to be there. On top of that, every week I was stuck having to give her new school supplies because every time she walks away from her desk, some of these kids were stealing her stuff, her pencil sharpeners, her erasers. I think that the icing on the whole issue for me was realizing that her teacher was not even coming to her aid. Her teacher was not working hard enough to try to connect with her. And the teacher never expressed any problems to me personally. Every time my daughter comes home, I talk to her. I try to figure out what's going on in the school, how she's doing. And so everything I was getting back was coming from my daughter. And I didn't want it to be one-sided. But the teacher never took time to express to me. There are several times I took it upon myself to approach her and ask her what's going on, how's she doing. I need to know because I need to know what's happening in the school so I know how to deal with my daughter at home, what to help her with, how to assist her. But it wasn't happening. So when I started to realize that they were actually physically disciplining her, that became the last straw for me. That is what really made her attitude cave in, because what it seemed like to me is that she was not understanding why they would whip her when she felt like she didn't do anything wrong. Case in point, I went to the school and I went to go pick her up. When I got there, I noticed all the kids were standing on the desk with their arms raised. My daughter was still sitting at her desk. I didn't ask questions, and I asked my daughter, what's going on? Why are the kids on the desk? She didn't know either, so she said, I don't know. The teacher told them to stand on the desk. So I let that go. I didn't ask the teacher about it because whatever it was, it didn't seem like my daughter was part of it, so I disregarded it. I saw it again a following time, and so this time when I came, I asked my daughter, did you find out why they keep letting the kids stand on desks? And she told me, I don't know. The teacher asked everybody to stand on the desk. She asked me to stand on the desk, but I told her no, because I told her I could fall and break my legs. And that was that. My daughter refused to stand on the desk. The teacher didn't do nothing about it and just let her be. So now I came to realize that that was a form of punishment for the students. So I finally approached the teacher, and after my daughter complaining to me that, it seems like they've been beating her, whether they've been beating her hard or not, that's not the point. Because when I enrolled her in that school as a Montessori school, I was not under the impression that they were applying beatings as a form of discipline. But the mistake I made was that I never had that conversation with the headmistress when I went to go enroll them. For whatever reason, coming back to Ghana, I didn't think that they were still doing this. It just didn't click to me to ask her that or have that conversation. And now my daughter is letting me know that they do beat them. A lot of times her frustration is that she doesn't understand what she did. Because, for instance, her teacher would ask her a question, she doesn't know the answer or doesn't remember the answer, and she gets beaten, and she doesn't understand why you have to beat her because she doesn't know the answer. And I was frustrated as a parent because my whole thought is, as a teacher, your job is to teach her. If she forgets, okay, she should remember, but it's okay. There's certain things that don't warrant a beating all the time. And unfortunately, that brings me to the attitude of people in Ghana. I feel like a lot of children in this country are not getting to be kids. Cannot just express themselves because it's easily for it to be interpreted as disrespect. But there's a difference between a child expressing themselves and them being disrespectful. And for my kids, I encourage them always to be themselves, to express themselves. If they are coming off the wrong way, then I teach them how to come out the right way. You can say whatever you want to say, but sometimes it's the way you say it, the presentation, the delivery. And that's what I focus on. Not so much to let them know that they can't express themselves. I don't shun them for asking any questions. They are free to be open. That's what I want for them, because I didn't grow up like that. When I was growing up, I was shy and timid as well, because I saw around me how kids get beaten so easily for nothing, for all the smallest things. So I never ever wanted to misbehave even in the slightest, because I never wanted to be beaten. I was very timid, but even with all of that, I would still get beaten in school. For instance, if the teacher comes and the class is misbehaving, I would get beaten as collateral, just because I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I tried my best to avoid this situation for my kids, but unfortunately, what I see is that even though the law is against children being beaten in school, a lot of schools in Ghana still practice it. You may get to the school and not see canes. Either they're hitting them with their own hands, kind of shoving them here and there, just, condescending attitude towards the kids. It's not helping the kids. So I finally got tired of it, and I decided to sit down with the headmistress myself. I approached her and I asked her, I'm like, listen, what's going on? Because I did not expect this. When I came to enroll them, I talked to you. I try to share with you as much about the kids. And the fact that you know that they're coming from an environment where they're not used to being whipped, they never even saw a cane until they came to Ghana. You know they're not used to being that. So while it's normal for the kids here to be whipped and not question anything, and their parents don't seem to care enough to approach you guys or address it or whatever, we did not go over that for my kids. And so now I have a dilemma where I want my kids to be in school, and I want them to get the same treatment as all the other kids, but I'm not okay with this. And because I can't put you in a position to have to treat my kids differently than you treat the rest of the kids in the school because they're not from abroad or they're not Abrochire kids, what are we going to do about that? So I talked to her. That's when she decided to come out with all her complaints about my kids and their behavior or whatever. And her whole argument was that my daughter was, not responsive. Like when they ask her questions, she doesn't want to participate. She doesn't want to. She basically tried to draw her in the light as if that she was being disrespectful. Like she wasn't trying to participate and do anything. And I asked her, what did you guys do to try to connect to the child? Have you tried to understand why she's the way she is? Do you even know that she's been getting bullied? I'm the one coming to the school constantly asking her teacher how she's doing, what is going on. And you guys always try to make it seem like everything's okay. But now that I'm coming down hard on you, now you want to let me know that, oh, she's doing this, she's doing that. And she's like, oh, it's not every day that we like to tell people and complain to parents about their kids and everything. Some parents don't want you calling them every day. And I told her, I'm always here. I expressed interest in knowing how my kids are doing. Every step of the way, I've expressed interest. I come here, I ask you guys how she's doing, and I expect honesty from you. If you can't be straightforward with me and let me know how my kids are doing, I don't know what to deal with at home. I don't know how to address certain issues that they're having. So on that note, I was still upset, but the final straw that made me make the decision to pull them out of that school is that I recently traveled. When I came back, my son had developed some type of skin situation. I went ahead, took him to the doctor, got all of that sorted out. And then it turned out that most of the kids in his class were having similar issues, but the teachers were not sharing it with the headmistress. And so she had no idea there were multiple kids that had been out of the class and were not coming to school for a while because of that. So at first she tried to make it seem like my son was having some issues and was spreading it. And so when I realized that there were other issues going on within the class and it wasn't being shared, I finally came to realize that the teachers are not communicating with the headmistress. Basically, nobody seems to know anything about what's going on in the school. They're not being accountable and they don't take responsibility. Result of that skin issue, the headmistress decided that my son couldn't come back to the school. And so for over a month, my son was in the house, not going to school. But I was just really frustrated with the whole thing because clearly whatever happened with him, he got it from somebody else in that class since other kids were having that issue. But in the end, after I have paid for 3 months worth of education, my son was now home for over a month. On top of that, their school uniforms, part of it that I should have gotten from the beginning of the quarter, I never received. So now it's approaching the end of the school term and I still didn't have them. I was very, very annoyed with the way the school handled everything. And so I decided that they were not going to go back to that school. I made it very clear to the school uniform that I never got for them, I went and got my refund for that. It was a bad experience. So when it was all said and done, I ended up enrolling them in another school. This was a negative experience, but it was even more disheartening to realize that many expat families are going through or have experienced the same thing. And I don't know what the solution is, but I do know one thing. I don't play about my kids, and that's that. So after removing them from that school, they seem a lot happier in their new school. Of course, we've had plenty of conversations about the experience. We've talked about their conduct in school, how they're expected to behave, and all of that. But more importantly, the new school staff has been amazing with them. It seems they took my concerns seriously and have been making more effort to help them learn and grow as students. The kids' academics has improved drastically. My youngest started school for the first time ever in this school, and she actually loves going to school. They all look forward to going to school. And honestly, from the outside looking in, the kids at the new school look like they're having way more fun to be in school compared to the old school. So they are definitely doing something right in that school. I guess my only advice to families, whether expats or locals who are trying to avoid this type of situation with other schools, you're just going to have to do a lot of research, pay attention to advice and recommendations by other families and parents. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. As always, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.